Welcome back, everyone, to Double Take, an NFL podcast, a football podcast. This is episode 44 of the show. I'm your host, David Gonzalez, and I'm joined once again by my co-host, Daniel Gonzalez. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. We got some good traction on Twitter. I saw my take went surprisingly well, so didn't get roasted. So trying to do that again this week.
Yeah, no, everyone really liked your Jalen Hurts take. I'm also going to put the one that you said about the Cowboys and your frustration with not keeping the same energy with Dak Prescott. And
we'll see how that goes.
We'll see how that one's received.
Yeah.
But today we are going to discuss the new contract extensions for Tua and Jordan Love and what this means for Dak Prescott and his upcoming contract. We'll talk about the big news coming out of training camp, including quarterback battles for a couple of teams. And then we're going to wrap up our AFC predictions with the AFC East and the AFC West, telling you how we think that they're going to do in the season. But then so heading into that, quarterback contract extensions, Tua Tagovalioa gets a 4-year, $212.4 million contract with $167 million guaranteed, earning $53.1 million a year. While Jordan Love signs a 4-year, $220 million contract, earning $55 million per year, now tied for being the highest paid quarterback in the NFL with Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence. And so, Daniel, coming off of that, what are your thoughts on each quarterback getting their respective contracts?
I'll talk Jordan Love first. I think this one, based on the season that he had last year and where they think he's going to be in the years to come, I think this is a good idea. Because quarterback contracts are only going to get more pricey. So same thing with the Trevor Lawrence contract that we talked about a couple weeks ago. The Packers decided to get in front of it because up next for these quarterbacks, it's got to be Dak. And who knows who might get a contract before Dak. We don't know what's going to happen. But the price is going to be reset around $65 million. So for the Green Bay Packers to get this done now, I think it's a good thing. Whether you think Jordan Love is going to be a top 10 quarterback, I think everyone is under the belief that he is a top 10 quarterback at this moment right now and is only going to get better. This is probably the best move for the Green Bay Packers. Now, for Tua and the Miami Dolphins, this is where it gets more nuanced and it gets a little bit more confusing. Because a lot of people believe he is a very system quarterback, doesn't play off schedule very well or even often. He's a byproduct of Mike McDaniels and Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. I don't think he's top 10. I think he's around 12 to 15, where a lot of people think Brock Purdy is. So for him to get 53, maybe that's a good thing. Don't know. I really don't know what to make of his contract. A lot of people are under the understanding that, hey, he's not even worth 50.
Right.
So Miami is put into a salary cap hell by having him. Tyreek's probably going to want a new contract pretty soon. Jalen Waddle just got paid I think it was $28 million a year at the receiver position. So, but I also hear another side of it of where, Miami before Tua was kind of where the Cowboys were before they got Tony Romo, between the Dan Marino to Tua era. They didn't have a quarterback. They had Chad Pennington for maybe a year or two, and then, how that story went, him getting injured all over again. So is that the reason? Is that the reason why they gave him this money? Because they're like, hey, we have a quarterback. This guy led the league in passing. All right, let's not forget that. He led the league in passing. But his problem is that he can't beat teams above 500, can't play in cold weather. That's probably the issue here. That a lot of people have. Can't play in big moments, can't play in subtropic weather. For me, that's how I'm justifying it. They haven't had a quarterback since Dan Marino. They found one. They said, hey, with Mike McDaniel, you should be able to elevate your quarterback
Mhm.
to new heights, to better heights, to not in spite, but make him better than he really is. And so for me, that's my take on these two quarterbacks. Green Bay got ahead of it, paid them now instead of waiting later. Cowboys, take note. And then Tua, I think he got signed because they don't want to roll the dice on getting another quarterback because it took them so long to figure out this one.
Yeah, in terms of Jordan Love, I think they clearly see big like the next guy in line following Favre and Rodgers. Struggled early in the first half of the season, but then in the second half really turned it on and then beat the Cowboys pretty handedly in the first game of the playoffs. In the first half of divisional round against the 49ers, held his own, but then did throw two interceptions to lose them the game against the 49ers. Um, I think you're right from a Green Bay Packer perspective. He's the guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's shown you he's the guy.
Yeah.
He got you to the playoffs, won you a playoff game, and had you in a contest with the San Francisco 49ers with one of the youngest receiving corps in the NFL, the youngest team in the National Football
Mm-hmm.
League.
Yeah.
And so because of that, lock him down now because his asking price is only going to go up.
Yeah.
And so you go ahead and get him done because you believe that he's your guy. He's proven he's your guy. He's won you a playoff game. So
Mm-hmm.
sign him.
Yep.
When it comes to Tua, I think you're absolutely right. I think Tua is probably the first. Well, I would say that and probably Trevor's contract to where people had an issue with it. Like
Yeah.
they said, hey, this
For
is a
sure.
problem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because they really haven't done anything. Tua statistically and in the regular season has done more than Trevor Lawrence,
Yeah.
but doesn't have the postseason success. Uh, I think where I'm different than a lot of other people is that I put the lack of playoff success on the entire team because the entire team, even without Tua, wasn't doing anything anyway.
Yeah.
Sure, you had Skylar Thompson playing at quarterback in one of the games, but again, it's because Tua. I think the bigger issue for me is that Tua has only had one full season
Right. One
where he's
healthy
been
season.
healthy.
Yeah.
Um, but I look at the lack of postseason success as a team issue.
Mm-hmm.
Miami has not been able to figure out how to beat teams over 500. The only team that they beat that was over 500 was another team who struggles to beat teams that are over 500, and that's the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
So 53.1 million. I think I would have more of an issue if he was the highest paid
Mm-hmm.
player. Because then I'd be like, okay, well, clearly he hasn't done enough to earn that contract. But he's like sitting around where Jared Goff is, who I think is another quarterback who has success because of the team around him, which is
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily a knock for Jared Goff because he
Mm-hmm.
plays well
Yeah.
when
I
he
think
has a running game. He has the best offensive line. He
you're
has good
confident that he'll
receivers.
do it with the team that he has. Like you know
Correct.
for a fact he can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Tua's around that area
Yeah.
too. I think Mike McDaniel still has another gear to hit coaching to have his teams ready to
Right.
play.
Yeah. I agree.
Uh, and I think he can get there. It, Tua's probably where Jared Goff was around not
Mm.
the
LA.
9-8 season.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and they're gearing up for a season like Detroit just had this past year, I
Mhm.
think. But let's go ahead and talk about the expectations for each quarterback based on the contracts that they've received. Where do you hold them to? What's the standard that you're holding to into this upcoming season?
Well, for Jordan Love, I think off the end of the year that they just had, They need to at have a good season. I wanna say they should win their division. That's what I wanna say. But in their division, they have a Detroit Lions team coming off an NFC championship run. You have a team who's on the rise in the Chicago Bears, who just got their dream quarterback, who put
Yeah, for
pieces
sure.
around him already, and their
Yeah.
expectations are for them to make some noise. And then also the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know if they're going to do anything this year. They still got to figure out what they're doing at the quarterback position, whether it's JJ McCarthy or it's Sam Darnold. But it is going to be an interesting division in the NFC North. But you are the guy getting paid $55 million a year. You're the highest paid quarterback in that division. And you just beat a Dallas Cowboy team who many thought were poised to do something other than a wild card loss. And then you did go toe to toe with the eventual NFC champions, San Francisco 49ers, which you unfortunately lost in the final minutes. So I'll just speak for me. I'm not going to speak for everybody else. They have to win their division and they have to get back to where they just were. Maybe NFC championship game because of the fact that you are now the highest paid quarterback in the NFC.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I think for Jordan, you have to win the division. You have to make another deep run in the playoffs. And I don't know. I'm also saying NFC Championship game. If you're going to be the highest paid player, you have to do that. Now, I don't know. Well, see, and here's where I'm trying to be fair. I know that this roster, this Green Bay Packers roster, isn't at the same level as Detroit's. But you are supposed to be the better quarterback of Jared Goff and that Jordan Love competition with your contract. Personally, I still would rather take Jared Goff
Mm-hmm.
over Jordan Love as of right now,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe this is the season to where Jordan Love takes it over and proves himself. Um, but I'm with you. He has to win his division, make a deep run in the playoffs, and get to the NFC Championship game with this contract that he's got. We like his offense. He's got
Mm-hmm.
a young, talented receiving group. He's got a great running back in Josh
Josh
Jacobs.
Jacobs. Yep.
And you're hoping this defense is revamped now that they let go of their defensive coordinator this past season and they got someone else in the room. And
Yeah.
we believe in Matt LaFleur as a head coach.
Yeah.
So you have everything that you need. You're poised and you're ready. You just need to take it over. But what are your expectations for Tua?
My expectation for Tua, I mean, based on how his division looks, I think, and not that this is a spoiler for me because I don't know if I'm going to go with him in our eventual figure it out segment. Josh Allen apparently is poised to have an MVP like season. Also, Aaron Rodgers and those Jets are supposed to be revamped and supposed to either win the division, be second place. So for me, my expectations, I'm not going to go on what he should do. I'm going to go what I think that's what's going to happen. He's going to be third place in that division. They will not make the playoffs. What he should do is he should make the playoffs and win a playoff game. And it has to be in cold weather against a team that's above 500. Because that should be the bare minimum of a quarterback who's making $53 million. So for me, I don't think he's going to do it. I think they're going to be third place in that division and they're going to miss it. So those are what I think he's going to do, but he should win a playoff game this year. Fix your mic. You're not in.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm just no longer under the belief that you're paying. I mean, you do have expectations of a quarterback when you pay him,
Mhm.
I just don't know if it's realistic now, and it's because the market is just so messed up because you are paying guys who haven't proven anything yet.
Mhm. But I'm asking him to prove me something.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm at the very least, Tua can't disappear in those games.
Yeah,
Like
he
in
just
those
can't
games against
anymore.
teams above 500, against in cold weather, he can't be one of the biggest reasons why they lose. And I think you can argue that he is in most of those games. He doesn't play well. But again, I think it's a team issue. But the expectation should be you should make it to the playoffs, even if you're the third team coming out of the AFC East. Now, it's going to be hard because I believe the team that's going to have three teams coming out of it is the AFC North. So there's really only going to be maybe two spots.
Mhm. Yeah.
And even the AFC West, they could be vying for two spots.
That's what I'm saying. I think the AF well,
The AFC
we'll talk
stacked, man.
we'll talk about, like, the Bengals, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, that whole division. They're also very
Mm-hmm.
stacked. A lot of them are gonna be hungry for a playoff spot, and so it's gonna be tough to get in, so I don't think they're gonna be able to do it this year.
Yeah, I don't know if they are going to be if they're going to be able to either. It's very very hard. At the very least though, you have to be competitive
Yeah. Mhm.
and you have to play well. I
Mhm.
think that's more of my expectation for Tua is in those games, can you perform?
Yeah.
Can you play well? Um, so those are my expectations for Tua, and that's our expectations for Jordan Love.
Yep.
Now, there is only one quarterback left in this cycle who is up for a contract extension, and that is Dak Prescott. The Cowboys have said that they're working and they've given Dak an offer. Balls in their court. They believe that they're going to get a contract done with him soon. With that being said, Daniel, what do you foresee this contract looking like? And are the Cowboys the ones who are going to sign Dak Prescott, or do you think that this is going to carry into March of next season?
Um, his floor is $60 million. That's what I believe. That's what he's gonna be
Like
asking
if
for.
you were Dak Prescott, you would
I
say
would ask
my
for
floor is
60.
60.
I would ask for 60. Because in my mind, I'm way better than Trevor Lawrence. I'm way better than Tua. And Trevor just got 55 for doing, I'm not gonna say nothing. He won a playoff game, but nothing.
This
He has
past year, he didn't.
he hasn't been an all pro like I have. He's never gotten an MVP vote. Dak Prescott was second in MVP voting last year. Trevor has not gotten that, and he got 55. I'm $5 million better, and I also know what's coming. I know Brock Purdy is coming down the road, and his asking price is going to be $60 to $65 million.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe I'm better than Brock Purdy
Yeah.
because no one believes in Brock Purdy, and he's going to get 65. My floor is 60. Do I think they're going to get it done? I don't think so. I think this is it for Dak Prescott. If they do not sign him before the season starts, he is going to go somewhere else because Dak Prescott has all the leverage in the world. You can't franchise tag him. You can't trade him. The ball is in Dak Prescott's court, and he's going to determine what he wants to do. He knows if he leaves Dallas, he's going to get 60 to 70 million dollars anywhere else.
Yeah.
He knows that. Jerry waited way too long. Way too long. He probably could have gotten Dak Prescott for $55 million. He just had to sign him before Trevor Lawrence. But because he chose to do that, his price went up 10 to 15 to $20 million. That's just the reality now. I don't think he's going to get a deal done. The floor is 60. I think this is the last season that we'll see of Dak Prescott, unless they sign him before the year begins.
Yeah, I will pose this question to you. Is there a possibility? Again, we don't know. And anybody who thinks that they know, they don't. But I'm just posing this to the floor. Is there a possibility, because we heard news coming out of CeeDee Lamb, that CeeDee Lamb told the Jones family, "Hey, I'm going to wait until all these other guys get paid because I want to be paid more than Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase."
Mhm.
And so, is there a possibility that Dak did the same thing, to where he's saying, where he was unwilling to have the conversation until everyone else got paid, and now it's being brought up to the floor? Like, do you think that there's a possibility that we're being too hard on the Jones family for the way that they conduct business and the way that they handle contracts?
I would s I would say maybe if Jerry and Steven didn't already have their reputation of screwing Dak. Does
Mm.
that make sense?
Yeah. No,
Because
I'm
when
with you. Yeah.
because when he was in his rookie deal and you had the inkling, hey, maybe this guy is probably gonna be our guy for the next couple of years, they chose not to sign. They chose not to give him a new contract. They made him play out his deal, made him play on a franchise tag, broke his ankle, almost was a career-ending injury, and then decided to pay him.
Mhm.
So am I going to blame Dak Prescott for wanting to get more because y'all cheated me out of getting more money and the front end of my career? So I'm not going to do you any favors in my second deal.
Mhm.
So for me, maybe that couldn't happen, but I don't blame Dak for doing that one bit because the Joneses have proven that either they don't really love Dak Prescott as much as they love Tony Romo.
Yeah.
They certainly haven't shown that. So it's their fault. Either way, it's their fault because had they taken care of Dak Prescott early, maybe Dak doesn't go and do this. If that makes sense. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to blame Dak Prescott even if he did do this because he knew they're probably going to make me wait to the end of my contract anyway. And they did. They
They
did.
did.
They didn't
They
start
did.
contract talks until this year, and we see Trevor Lawrence, he has, I think, 2 more years on his deal, and they got it done.
Mhm.
Jordan Love, they what's he entering, his 4th season? So he was 2 years out of his deal expiring, but the Cowboys always with Dak Prescott are waiting till the final year to start conversations. No, I'm not giving them a pass for this at all.
Well, I mean, but fairness, Jordan Love also was just like, "I'm not playing without a new contract. Like, I'm not even like, I'm not
And
practicing."
maybe Dak should have done that. I don't know, but again,
It's too much of a leader to do that.
yeah, I guess, yeah.
But yeah, I think Dak will probably get. Yeah, if I was Dak, I'd say my floor is 60. Um, I don't know. People are adamant that he's gonna get a deal in Dallas. I just
I know Savage does. He
yeah,
definitely believes that he will, and, if they do, I'm gonna be happy. And maybe that's a different conversation whether or not you and I want Dak to be our quarterback, and maybe in lieu of the figure it out segment, maybe this is a conversation we have now. I don't know, it's up to you.
yeah, let's do it.
So for me, I think the issue that people need to be honest with themselves about, and I think it just comes down to this. Do you wanna keep Dak Prescott, continue to be in the mix every year, and there's a dice chance that we'll eventually break through? Or do we wanna take the chance of starting completely over, going through a period of I don't know if we'll ever be like we were in the late '80s, 1 and 15, 3 and 13. I don't know if we'll ever be there, but be in the 8 and 9, 7 and 11, that type of thing for 3 or 4 years, praying, hoping that we get the next quarterback and start this whole process all over again. Which would you rather have as a Cowboys fan? That should determine what you want to do with Dak Prescott. For me personally, I rather have a quarterback who I know plays at an all-pro level, is an MVP candidate, and can we put better coaching around him? Because it seems like everyone's trying to crown Mike McCarthy as this awesome head coach, which at the end of his time in Green Bay, everyone believed he was outdated, not really fit to be a head coach anymore, went away to work at Pro Football Focus for the year, lied about how much he dove into analytics to get the Cowboys job, which he admitted after he did that. Instead of putting him around a coach who we believe is more innovative, can have his team ready to play. Cowboys fans, that's something we've been complaining about for the past 4 years. That in the biggest moments, in the biggest games, our team is not ready to play. Could that be the issue? Could that be a reason why we're allergic to prosperity? Because we don't have the right coach in the seat? So that's the question I pose to everybody. What would you rather have? A great regular season with a chance to eventually break through, or take a chance at getting another quarterback who we don't know if he's going to be any good. He could be another Ryan Leaf. Are we willing to go that route instead? And if you're okay with that, that's fine. That's up to you. Me personally, I'd rather have a quarterback who's proven that they can play and we have a chance to break through 1 year. But that's just me.
Like I've been saying that for the last 3 years. It always gets painted that like Savage and I are at different ends of the spectrum and you're more in the middle when we have these kinds of conversations. I think the reality of what it actually is that I I believe that I've always been the most fair while being also the most optimistic while being pessimistic when I needed to be. I like I've realized for a long time that we need a full team to be that championship contender that we're waiting to be. But everyone puts it on the quarterback every single time. And you used to be in the boat to where Savage is right now, where it's
And I've
all
said it
Dak
many
Dak
times. I used
Prescott's
to be there.
fault. Like it's the majority. Like he's the majority of the reason. Let's forget about the fact that we never have a running game in the postseason. That the defense doesn't show up 5 out of the 7 playoff games that Dak has played in. Let's forget the fact that in the biggest game against the San Francisco 49ers in 2021, that our team was penalized the most in franchise history in a postseason game. And a lot of those penalties came after a Dak Prescott would make plays to push us down the field. Has Dak over the last 2 playoff games underperformed in both games? Yes, absolutely. And I would say in 2022, he was the reason why we lost because our defense held San Francisco to 19 points. He should have scored more than that.
Yeah.
I'm willing to acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2016 against the Green Bay Packers, Dak threw for over 300 yards, threw for 3 touchdowns, drove the Cowboys all the way back. And then Aaron Rodgers beat the Cowboys with a miraculous throw at the end of the game to set up a Crosby field goal. That game's not on Dak Prescott. In 2017, Dak did not have any number 1 receivers. He had an aging Dez Bryant. He had a Jason Wynn that retired. He wasn't on the team anymore, so we had no tight end. You had Ezekiel Elliott, who the entire time was dealing with legal issues and then eventually got suspended. You get to 2018, now we don't even have Des Bryant. And it took you losing and being 3-4 to finally say, okay, we'll trade and we'll get Dak a number one receiver. And lo and behold, guess what happened?
They took off.
They took off. Imagine that. Giving your franchise quarterback finally a number one receiver. And we make it to the playoffs. Dak then Seattle comes to our place. Their defense is still very, very good, even if you want to say that Russell Wilson was not the same Russell Wilson. But Dak's the one who engineered 2 drives in the second half to get us the lead. So he shows up and he plays well and he wins us that game. You go then into the next game against the Los Angeles Rams in the divisional round. Ezekiel Elliott doesn't even average 3 yards a carry. The defense gives over 250 yards rushing. And the defense gets spanked, and Dak does everything he can. He doesn't play a terrible game. He actually played better than Jared Goff. And the Cowboys still lose. Then you go into 2019 with Jason Garrett. All his mess, not ever having the Cowboys ready to play. We get another 8-8 season. 2020, then Dak gets hurt without having a contract. But that defense is the worst defense ever, and Dak is putting up 450 yards passing a game trying to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
And he does really well for having to throw as many times as he has because the defense can't stop anybody. Probably was going to have an MVP number season at the very least. Probably wouldn't win it because we weren't going to win a lot of games that year. That defense was terrible. You get to 2021, he has one of his best seasons, regular seasons. Like I said, I already highlighted San Francisco, most penalized team in that postseason game in franchise history. 2022 was his fault. Then you get to 2023 with no running game, with an offensive line that can't stay healthy, with a defense that didn't show up for any big game at all whatsoever, led by Micah Parsons. Did Dak play well against the Green Bay Packers in the first half? No, he did not. He did not.
Yeah.
But neither did CeeDee Lamb. And especially not the defense, who from the jump were gassed, it seemed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and this is where, like, I'm not on your boat. Like, do I think Dak Prescott is the answer for this team? I don't know.
And that's the thing. I don't think he is either.
I don't know.
I don't think that.
But my thing is, the only quarterback that the Cowboys have taken in a draft that's been any successful in the Jerry Jones era has been Troy Aikman. And that's it. You know, we had some quarterbacks. I think Quincy Carter was taken in the second round, and then he had his issues. So he, stopped playing for the Cowboys in 2004.
Yeah.
And then Tony Romo fell into our laps in 2006. If you're telling me for 100% certainty that person is going to come here because, and this is where you and I disagree, I think Tony Romo is way better than Dak Prescott. I think Tony Romo on these teams, however, I don't know. With his defense, maybe not. Maybe he couldn't.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think.
Well, maybe in 2022, when defense held San Francisco to 19 points, Tony Romo would have won that for sure. But if you're telling me we're getting a generational quarterback like Patrick Mahomes to play on the Dallas Cowboys, then I'll say, hey, like, go take that chance. For me personally, this is just me personally, I don't want to roll the dice on a couple more years of not even being competitive. I want to be competitive, Cowboys fans. And I know with Dak Prescott, we're going to be competitive. And maybe, just maybe 1 year, we may break through until Dak retires. And then we can start this process over. I want to be competitive. If we roll the dice, we may not be competitive. And I don't want that personally.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say is I don't think Tony could win with these teams because I think by the time that he figured out how to play the quarterback position, his body had already
Breaking down.
betrayed him.
Sure. But who
And
knows? Maybe with a
but maybe he
maybe
would have.
with a defense that he didn't figure out like he had to do it, maybe he would have figured that out quicker.
Yeah, and I'd be willing to hear that. Maybe Tony would have figured that out quicker with these kinds of rosters, at least from an offensive perspective. Because I think defensively, I've already highlighted defensively in the postseason, they have actually not shown up more than Dak Prescott. They've actually folded more than Dak Prescott has in his postseason career.
Hmm.
So maybe offensively, Tony would have been better suited.
Mhm.
But I also think that the things that Tony went through helped him figure those
Yeah,
things out, I would
true.
say.
Mhm.
Um, but you're right. I mean, Jerry Jones has only hit on a quarterback in the draft twice.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
really,
so
it was Sean Payton and Bill Parcells
Mhm.
who found Tony.
Yeah. It just depends on how you want the next 5 years to go, is whether you wanna keep Dak Prescott or not. That's all it comes down to. I don't think anybody's wrong. It's just what is your preference?
Yeah, I
I
think
know for
that's
I
true.
know for Savage, he'd rather start over and try to find the next guy. For me, I what there's no I can't find any sense of enjoyment in that.
I also so I guess the last question talking about this is, do you think it is possible for us to find a quarterback who can give us the same production that Dak has given us over the last 8 years?
Not immediately. No. And I think if Dak has a great year this year, we're gonna be picking in the low 20s, and the likelihood that we're gonna find
There's
a
not a good
all
quarterback class
pro
this year.
so, like, unless people want Shador Sanders, do they think he's gonna be a generational talent, a generational
Everyone thinks
quarterback?
it's gonna be Coach Prime and Shador
So, like,
next year.
is he generational? Because with Jerry Jones and Steven Jones running the show, it's gonna take a generational quarterback to win. And if the goal is to eventually win a Super Bowl and we don't think that a quarterback is generational, then what's the difference than paying Dak? And like, what is the difference? There is no difference.
Yeah.
So why stink for a couple of years when you can be competitive? If the result after you get that quarterback is going to be the same.
Yeah. I guess the question is, do you trust the Jones family to find that next guy? And like I said, after the presser last week, I don't have any confidence that they can find the guy. Now, do you trust Daniel? You're a big Will McClay guy. Do you think Will McClay can find somebody?
I mean, he
Because
found
you keep
Dak.
talking about how good he is. Couldn't he find another guy?
I think quarterbacks are a different player to kind of scout. And I don't know anything about scouting quarterbacks, so I'm not the best person to be gassing up Will McClay on if he can find a quarterback. I mean, he found Dak, but I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I,
Um,
I think ultimately you really can't go wrong with either one because I think you're just gonna have the same result regardless of what you do. Like
mhm.
whether it's Dak Prescott as a quarterback, whether it's a different quarterback who's not generational, I think the same thing's gonna be is gonna happen.
And I think people's argument to that would be, what if he is generational? What if this quarterback is generational? then it would have been worth it.
But the only generational quarterback that we've had is Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Caleb Williams, maybe Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I would also say, and maybe Joe Burrow's not generational, but he's good enough to take you over the top. Like, I think those types of quarterbacks who you believe can win a Super Bowl, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers in his prime, like those types of quarterbacks, I think people would want to have that. And
So
some people rather roll the dice and would want to say, hey, we could land somebody. That's what they're hoping for. That doesn't happen every day. That's why I wouldn't do that.
Well, and some of the names you mentioned. So let's take Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is still with Zach Taylor, who I think is a better overall coach than Mike McCarthy. Because even without Joe Burrow, they finished the season around 500, had a shot at the playoffs.
Yeah, that's gonna. Oh man, that's a whole different conversation that I have, and it might be safer to do it with you than with Savage, but I have thoughts about that.
So Zach Taylor's a really good coach.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford, who we know is an incredible talent, had to go with Sean McVay, an elite head coach, to win a Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers, as elite as he was only able to get one Super Bowl with Mike McCarthy. So we're talking about with the Dallas Cowboys, with the Jones family, are you going to be able to get that coach? Because think about it, and I've said this many times. What was Dak Prescott supposed to do as a not generational quarterback? We can agree that he's not generational.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was Dak supposed to do with Jason Garrett?
Mm-hmm.
What's Dak supposed to be with a Mike McCarthy who we once said heading out of Green Bay was outdated? Like, what is he supposed to do with that? Not saying that everybody can get an Andy Reid.
Well, I think, again, people's argument would be to that you still had the number one offense with Mike McCarthy. I think people would say that.
But then what happens in the postseason? Did we have a running game in any of the playoff games?
No, but we didn't have a running game all year.
Exactly.
And we still had the number one offense.
We had the number one offense, but at some point, your quarterback can't consistently, for 17 weeks plus the postseason, play the exact same, especially if your receivers are starting to drop passes. If your defense doesn't show up. So what I would argue is, like, no quarterback who has won the Super Bowl recently has ever done it on their own. Stafford, when he won, had an elite defense. Patrick Mahomes over this past year had an elite defense because Patrick was not playing well.
Mm-hmm.
Brock Purdy, to get to the NFC Championship game, twice needed his defense to step up. So we're seeing, and then Tom Brady, when he beat Patrick Mahomes, his defense destroyed the offensive line of Patrick Mahomes. Brady barely had over 220 yards passing in that Super Bowl. So again, this is where I have a problem a lot with Cowboys haters, or Dak haters in particular, is because we're saying, well, Dak has to play at this elite high level in the postseason. No, he doesn't. But he does have to, because this defense is so bad. This team is not ready to play consistently in the postseason. And so to expect Dak Prescott to do that when even the great quarterbacks who have done it, they've had defenses, they've had running game, they've had their entire team clicking on all cylinders. When was the last time you were able to say that the Cowboys were hitting on all cylinders in the postseason?
Like Jimmy? If
You've
you want
never
to go
been
Barry
able to
in
say
there,
that.
maybe.
And quarterbacks have bad postseason games. That's what I'm saying. Like Josh Allen in 2022 against the Cincinnati Bengals, was he good in that game? No, he was not. Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game in 2021. Didn't he lay the egg in that game?
Yeah,
So we
but he
can
already
always
won a Super Bowl.
sure, but we can what I'm saying is we can bring up situations for other quarterbacks to where they've laid an egg. But if you really break down the games, there's only 2 games of Dak's 7 games in his postseason career where you could look at it and be like, Dak laid an egg. But
Yeah,
you talk to Dak haters, he's the reason in every single one of them.
right, and I think that's, a bit of overreaction. But what I would say is it would be easier to defend Dak had in losses and I know it's maybe asking too much and it may be a bit unfair, but especially in that Green Bay game, in that first half, had
You
he
don't think the
not
pick
thrown the
6?
interceptions, like
Well, I
and
don't blame him for the first one. I don't
there's
blame him
one
for
of
the first
them
one.
where obvious PI,
But the
but
second one, yeah,
that
that
pick
pick 6
six
was bad.
was not
Mhm.
great, and I think maybe people would go easier on him had he not made a mistake like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it is what it is, and I think
I can understand the frustration, especially over the last 2 seasons. I just for me, what makes it hard is when they act like this has been Dak his entire career, when
Mhm,
it hasn't been. It hasn't been.
mhm,
And, my thing is that I think that we can get another great quarterback. It's gonna take a while.
and that would
I
be
think
my issue.
eventually but here's the thing, I think we will, but I don't ever think that just a good to great quarterback is going to be able to get this team over the hump,
Mhm,
because I don't think that you need a quality head coach. You need a great head coach to win a Super Bowl.
mhm.
The last time the Cowboys had a great head coach,
Bill Parcells.
Bill Parcells, but then he left because he couldn't take Jerry anymore. Then the next last coach was Jimmy Johnson, who then Jerry ran out of town because he wasn't getting the credit that he thought he needed. So, Cowboys fans, are you telling me that you believe that Jerry Jones is going to bring in a great head coach that can get this team over the hump and to win a Super Bowl, even if the quarterback's not Dak Prescott? I don't think that we're ever going to see that with the Jones family. So I don't care who's at quarterback. You're not going to win a Super Bowl because no organization has ever won a Super Bowl without a great head coach. And the Cowboys haven't had that in a long time. And it's because of Jerry Jones,
Mm,
period. So we can let go of Dak. We can get rid of him. It's not going to get better because historically it's never been better.
mhm.
And that's just what it is. So, off that depressing note, uh, do you want to do the quarterback battle segment real quick, or do you want to just go straight into the divisional breakdowns?
Let's do
What do you
divisional
think?
breakdowns. I
All
think
right.
that quarterback battle, I think it might work itself out in a week.
Yeah, because preseason games are coming up actually pretty soon. So that'll
Yeah.
probably be the best indicator for us to do that. So let's go
Mhm,
ahead. We are going to be breaking down the AFC East and the AFC West, determining who our division winners is, and then also determining the team that is on the hot seat. So
mhm.
first, let's start with the AFC East. We have the Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins, New England Patriots, and the New York Jets. Daniel, how do you see this division shaking out, and who do you think is the team on the hot seat?
I think for me, the team that's on the hot seat is the New York Jets. There's been a lot
I
of
agree.
conversation, a lot of speculation, a lot of hype around this team. Aaron Rodgers is back. The savior of the world is back. You just picked up 3 offensive linemen that's gonna change the life of that offensive line. Your defense, top 5 in the league despite not having good quarterback play over the past couple of years. Now you have one. No one seems to think that Nathaniel Hackett or Robert Saleh is the issue in New York. The Buffalo Bills are decimated. A slew of key players and contributors are off the team. New England is going to be New England. Miami is strapped with a quarterback that nobody believes in. This should be your division to win. We'll see if that is actually going to be the case this year.
What do you think is going to happen?
What is going to happen this year is based on what everyone is saying about Josh Allen, how everybody went after you on Twitter for saying maybe Josh Allen may not be top 5.
Yeah.
He's supposed to have an MVP like season. Even if he's not going to be the MVP like last season, they did figure out a formula to win games.
Mm-hmm.
Just look at their stretch over the last part of the season. So I think whether Josh Allen goes crazy or they keep him hampered and run the same system they did towards the end of last year, they should win this division. I have New York being in second place, Miami in third, and New England in fourth. But the one on the hot seat, New York Jets.
Yeah, for the very reasons that you explained, I also have the New York Jets on the hot seat, but I also think that Robert Saleh is on the hot seat as well.
Mm-hmm. You have your quarterback. Go win.
You have your quarterback. Can you manage him? Can you manage this team? I think there's been a lot of questions in the way that Robert Saleh has handled the team. I think he botched the Zach Wilson scenario, like situation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he handled that well at all.
Nope.
So, but they have the team. They have the quarterback. Everyone was saying, we were saying it too. All the New York Jets needed was a quarterback. And I still think that you have a top 10 talent quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. Even though he's not in our top 10, he has the ability to be a top 10, top 5 quarterback still. We just haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm. He was out of sight, out of mind.
So this should be your division to win. I'm going to put myself in a corner here in two different ways. I'm acknowledging that Buffalo doesn't have a good football team. And I'm acknowledging that I think that Josh Allen, to some extent, his mistakes have been covered up by the talent on this team in terms of not letting his turnovers affect their chances of winning games. So, because that is gone, or we believe that that's gone, I am saying that Miami is going to win this division.
Oh.
And I'm putting that on Tua. Win your division.
Wow.
You feel great. You feel good. And here's the sad part. I've picked Miami to win the division. I think I picked them last year to win the division too. So I'm putting it on them again. You're supposed to be, like you said, Daniel, Buffalo's supposed to be decimated, right? I don't think Josh Allen has been carrying this team as much as people think he has. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. Pick Miami to win this division. I have the Jets going second. I have Buffalo at third. And then I have New England in last place. Because here's what I'm going to have to do. If Josh Allen is able to win this division and to play well, I'm going to have to be like, listen, guys, I'm sorry for what I said about Josh Allen. To some extent, because I think my reasons were valid. But Josh Allen has finally hit that next step that he was supposed to as a quarterback. And put him back in my top 5 if he does that. But I'm saying, I'm putting my money where my mouth is and saying that he can't because he doesn't have the team around him to still do it. Now, if he throws pick after pick and this defense is shutting teams down and not letting them to score, and it's like okay, obviously this team was not decimated as it was before. But if he cuts the turnovers down and he plays well and they win the division, I'm going to have to give Josh Allen his credit. I'm going to have to. And maybe that sounds a little bit like I'm hedging my bets, but I think it's a fair evaluation of Josh Allen. It also reflects just how good of a coach Sean McDermott is. because apparently people in Buffalo don't like him. They don't think he's a good head coach.
Wow.
I'd love to have him in Dallas.
Mm.
I would. But I think this is well, it has to be the Jets, but I also think the team on the hot seat is Miami. I think
Here's why I
Miami
would say
has to be
no.
because they paid their quarterback.
I know, but no
Mike
one
McDaniel hasn't won the big game yet.
Yeah, but no one believes that Tua is that guy anyway.
Yeah.
So they know they're not going to win anything. It would be one thing if you have expectations and you're just not meeting them. Do they have expectations? Somewhat, but do people
They
actually believe
do.
that Tua is that guy that he's going to actually meet those expectations?
Probably
No.
not.
So I don't think
Nope.
anyone's expecting them to do anything. Should they expect them to? Yeah, there should be expectation because you just paid a $53 million quarterback. But our people already have written the story about Tua
Yeah.
and they're sticking to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go over to the AFC West. We have the Denver Broncos, we have Kansas City, we have the Raiders, we have the Chargers. I have obviously Kansas City winning this division.
Yep.
It's hard to say which team is on the hot seat, really. But if I had to choose one, it's going to be the Denver Broncos. The reason why I say the Denver Broncos is because Sean Payton, you're the one who ran Russell Wilson out of the building. You're the one who was dogging on him since the offseason. You made it clear that Russell Wilson was not your guy. So now you have Bo Nix. You brought in Zach Wilson. You have to make noise. You have a Raiders team and a Chargers team with two new head coaches to the organization. The Chargers have basically stripped their team bare. They have no receivers.
Mm-hmm.
They're putting in a new offense. They've lost defensive pieces. The Chargers aren't expected to do anything. The Raiders have Devontae Adams. They believe in their new running back. I think it's White. I think it's who he is.
Mm-hmm.
This defense is going to be ready to play, but they don't have a quarterback. At least not until next year when they get Dak Prescott.
Mm-hmm.
So no one's expecting the Raiders to do anything. You, Sean Payton, basically said, I'm going to trust myself. I'm going to get rid of Russell Wilson. I'm going to bring my own guy in, and I'm going to do well. We're going to be better. I'm not as high on Sean Payton as everybody else is.
Yeah, same.
So go do it. Get it done.
Yeah, I think for me, I have the same answer that you do. Chiefs obviously going to win the division. Like you look at both the Raiders and the Chargers first year under new head coaches, the expectations are going to be very minimal. I know for the Chargers, we want the Chargers to be competitive early. They may not, but we understand what
They may
happened.
be competitive, yes.
They made a lot of roster moves to kind of help their cap situation. They're going to continue to do that over the next first 2 years. And so this may be this is just not their time. And I think people are kind of tempering their expectation because they were in such, caps hell for the last couple of years. So now they're trying to rectify that. The Raiders, I mean, part of me wanted to say them because they did take a shot at Kansas City in the beginning of training camp, but the Raiders are going to do what the Raiders are going to do. Like that's not a rivalry because they haven't, obviously, but they are the Raiders. And you're right. Denver, they chose to go a different route. They started 1-5 last season, ended up being 7-7, and then benching Russell Wilson because they didn't want to pay him any more money.
Yeah.
Knowing that they didn't
already
want
knew that he wasn't
the
their
next
guy.
year. So, and again, Bo Nix has been their guy. They decided to take a guy who many people don't believe is that guy. So, Sean Payton's apparently the quarterback guru. He's going to bring out the best out of him. So the expectations they're going to be there because you've been so vocal about how much you do not like the quarterback, even though when you came and took the job, you knew he was going to be the quarterback anyway. So it is what it is. Denver is on the hot seat. Do I think they're going to fire him after this year? No, because again, it is a
No.
rookie quarterback,
Mhm.
but he is the one who has the most to prove in this season.
Yeah, I don't think hot seat necessarily in this sense is for firing.
Interview fired. Yeah.
I think well, for Robert Saleh it is. But for Sean Payton, like you said, they just got a rookie quarterback. They're going to give him at least another year
Mm-hmm.
with him. Um,
But you are going
but
to look
he is,
bad if he sucks.
yeah. If he's bad, we are going to look at Sean Payton. Who's like, hey, listen, maybe Drew Brees was the one who carried you.
Mm.
I mean, because to me, Drew Brees is a top 10 quarterback of all time. So yeah, I think the way that this is gonna the way that it's gonna shake out, it's gonna be Kansas City. I think it's gonna be the Chargers,
I do have the Chargers in second. Yeah. Then the Raiders,
then the Raiders, then Denver.
then Denver.
Um, I like Antonio Pierce. I like him a lot.
I like
He's a
Gardner
Raider.
Minshew.
Don't let Savage's ears probably burning right now because he doesn't think highly of him.
No,
But
I don't think
he's a good placeholder.
he's a good placeholder for a year. Like if you're
Yeah,
thinking about taking a quarterback next year and you want to be competitive,
you're
you
waiting
want
for
to
Dak.
put butts in the seats, or for Dak, he's going to get you 7 to 8 wins. And they
Make
played
you
pretty well
competitive.
with Aiden McConnell. They were competitive in games, and so
Yeah,
I think Gardner Minshew's an upgrade from Aiden McConnell. So good bridge quarterback for a year.
I think so too. I mean,
I think Savage thinks that too. I think people think he can be a viable starter long term in this league, and that's just not the case. Because if he was, he would be.
yeah. I mean, last season he didn't play particularly well. I mean, because
Yeah,
he had to fill in for Anthony Richardson.
yeah,
He was 7-6 as a quarterback, 62% completion percentage, 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. So
not bad.
not bad.
I mean, winning 7 games, that'll
I
work.
think Gardner Minshew is a quarterback that he's too good to be a backup,
Mm-hmm.
but he's not good enough to be a long-term solution at quarterback.
Correct. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I think he's a good bridge guy. Honestly, I am rooting for the Raiders just because I think that if Dak does end up leaving, the Raiders is one of the teams I see him going with.
Mm-hmm.
The other team is who we're going to be talking about next week. It's going to be the New York Giants, as we're going to cover the AFC. Well, no, we'll do the AFC North and AFC South first, and
Okay.
then we'll do the East and the West, just like we did here. But that's going to do it for us here at Double Take, a football podcast. Thank you so much for listening or watching. If you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the channel because we're going to finish this out in a couple of episodes. But like I said, once we hit late August, when we get close to the NFL season, we are going to be switching over to Double Take, a sports podcast where we'll be covering NFL, NBA, and college football, and maybe possibly more if we feel inclined to do so. But
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be on that new channel. That link for that podcast is going to be in the description. So make sure to subscribe to that channel and to get ready for more news on that. But Daniel, anything else to add before we sign off?
Nope. Good to talk football again. Hopefully, we'll get Savage in here. He has the baby, and so that's messing up his schedule right now. That's why we gave him paternity leave, and so hopefully in a couple weeks it may be possible. But yeah, miss that guy.
Yeah, we definitely do miss him here on this show. But until next time, have a great time watching training camp and seeing all the NFL news. We'll see you guys next time. God bless.